Hey audio nerds, welcome back to the channel. We've just hit 3,000 subs, which is totally awesome, so thank you so much for all your feedback and comments and support. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do just take a second to hit that little red button below. I appreciate it. And to celebrate, by the way, I've got this, some hand cream, which loads of people have been clamoring for. I've put it on, and whether it makes a difference or not, I don't know. You tell me. Lossless streaming. Until now, it's been the preserve of audio nerds like you and me, with most people opting for lossy streaming services. Let's face it, it's mainly Spotify. However, Apple has shaken the scene up by transitioning its Apple Music service to lossless without increasing the monthly cost, making it a very compelling option for those seeking higher quality streaming audio, particularly if you own an Apple device. But there are other lossless services. Amazon Music HD, Kobuz, Tidal and Deezer have all been offering lossless streaming for longer. So I thought we'd take a quick look at all these services compared to Apple Music and look at the factors which might help you decide between them. Now you lot are clearly interested in lossless streaming because I put this poll up on the YouTube community tab about which one you use or which one you'd want to use, and most of you, perhaps unsurprisingly given the price, have gone for Apple Music, and there's a huge chunk of you, almost a third in fact, waiting for Spotify to launch their lossless streaming tier later on this year. So let's take a look at the new kid on the block first, the current cool kid, Apple Music Lossless. Now this launched in June 2021. Apple Music has had about 70 million tracks encoded at AAC 256, and at launch 20 million of these are available in Apple Lossless Audio Codec. Now Apple grades these in two tiers, so there's standard lossless, which is up to 24-bit 48 kHz, and then high res at 24-bit 192 kHz, but there are very few of these around at the moment, and currently you can only get Apple Music Lossless officially on iOS devices or Mac computers. There is a beta, as you Americans like saying, on Android, but it's not officially supported. Cost-wise, as we said, it's the same, so $9.99 or pounds for an individual membership, $14.99 for families, and a rather tempting $4.99 for you lucky students out there. So, good things about Apple Music. Obviously, very comprehensive library, curated playlists, which are really good. They're updated frequently and cover most genre. I've really enjoyed discovering new stuff through there. There's good discovery algorithm, a bit like Spotify, which recommends you stuff based on what you listen to. And there are 3 live radio stations, which I must admit I don't really listen to very much, but I know some people love them. You also get video exclusives and video performances. I think there was a Taylor Swift one last year. They can be fun. There is also this spatial audio, which I'm not a fan of, but you might like. I quite like the app on iOS devices such as my iPad. It works really well, it's smooth, there's no audio issues, and you get bit-perfect playback as long as you use an external DAC. So all that's pretty good. And I really like the lyrics view as well. You can skip to a particular bit of the song just by tapping on the lyrics. Downsides, well, on the Mac desktop app, the experience is less good. You don't get direct access to the computer audio DAC. You unfortunately have to go through macOS's core audio stack, which means that you have to keep changing the sample rate using audio MIDI setup in order to make sure you're getting bit-perfect playback, which is a real nuisance and actually a shocking oversight. There's a bit of confusion if you've got songs uploaded in iTunes Match, which, by the way, aren't automatically upgraded to lossless. And at the moment, there's patchy high-res support because not many files are available in high-res format. And also there's limited hardware integration with hi-fi audio equipment. I'm sure that will change. So next we'll come on to Amazon Music. Again, extensive library, and Amazon calls its offering HD for CD quality tracks and Ultra HD for up to 24-bit 192 kHz tracks. Again, available on iOS and Mac, but also on Android and Windows. There are apps for all these devices. And if you're a Prime subscriber, it's the cheapest lossless streaming solution at $7.99 or pounds a month, $9.99 for non-Prime members, $14.99 for families. So good things about Amazon, again, really extensive library. There are some music discovery algorithms, which I didn't find quite as good as the Apple version or Spotify, but not bad. If you're an Echo device user or you use the voice assistant, there's obviously very tight integration with that. There's 360 degrees spatial audio, which again to me is a gimmick. And it's also integrated into some audiophile hardware, such as the stuff from Bluesound. So if you've got a Node or a Power Node, you can control Amazon Music through the app, and you can if you've got Sonos stuff as well. But the main thing going for it is that it's cheap. Now then, things that aren't so good. Again, it's very hard to get bit-perfect playback, not just from the desktop apps, but also from iPad and iPhone. So even with an external DAC, it seems to want to select the highest possible bitrate that the DAC is capable of, which is a bit annoying really. It's difficult to tell exactly what bitrate and sample rate your track is played in because you've got these silly HD and UHD labels. And I found the apps to be a bit sluggish, particularly the Mac app. I didn't like it at all. So coming on to Deezer next. Now Deezer's been around for a very long time, and I didn't realise it did a hi-fi tier, but it does, and it makes it very easy. Hi-fi basically means CD quality, 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz, and you do get the full library of 70 million tracks in that format. Again, supported across all platforms. It really has wide compatibility, and there's a flat fee of $14.99 or pounds a month. So good things about Deezer. I really like the app. I found it to be the best mobile app, even rivaling Apple Music on the iPhone, which is a bit funny. It's got good algorithmic music discovery. There's this flow feature, which bases recommendations on artists that you've said you enjoy, as well as the songs that you've played. Again, like Apple Music, there's full lyric support, and you can navigate through tracks using the lyrics. And there are some decent curated playlists. I didn't find them quite as good as Apple Music, but they're not bad at all. And there is wide integration into many audio devices, so you can control Deezer using the apps of all these devices once again. It's quite nice. There is some limited 360-degree audio, and also there's a long free trial of 3 months, which gives you plenty of time to dip your toes in the Deezer water, as it were. However, like Apple Music and Amazon Music HD, there's a lack of an exclusive access to the DAC on the desktop apps, meaning that you won't get bit-perfect playback on Windows or Mac unless you fiddle with a whole load of settings. You will get it on iPhone or iPad with an external DAC though, which is better than Amazon. It is expensive though at $14.99 a month, and there is no high-res music if that's your thing, so the audio quality caps out at 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz, which is fine by me, but those of you after 192 kilohertz files are going to be out of luck. Tidal next. So Tidal's perhaps the most well-known lossless music streamer, and once again Tidal offers an extensive number of tracks. That number 70 million is clearly the key here, and all of its offerings are in at least 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz FLAC, and there is also a proportion of tracks available in what it calls its Tidal Masters high resolution format. Now this is based on MQA. I'm going to get into that slightly in a minute, but there's wide app support, and the apps are actually pretty decent on the whole. It's really expensive though, so you're looking at $19.99 or pounds a month, a tenner for students, and $25 for family membership. I believe if you're a member of the US military, then you do get a discount. So good things about Tidal. Well, it's been widely adopted by audiophiles, mainly because of its tight integration within audiophile software solutions such as Roon and Audiovana. It also does have direct exclusive modes on desktop apps, which allow it to get automatic sample rate switching and bit-perfect playback using external DACs. There is a big library, which we've already said, although it tends to lean towards promoting R&B and hip-hop artists, presumably due to Jay-Z's involvement. So if you're into urban music, you'll find it perhaps the best service. And you do get plenty of exclusive videos and features. It has reasonable recommendation algorithms, some curated playlists, although one of the downsides is, for me anyway, the playlists weren't as good or as in-depth as Apple Music or Deezer. Obviously, the other downsides are that it's expensive. Now, if you are a DankPod subscriber, I'm sure a lot of you are, he did a video recently where he complained that he was getting loads of glitches within the app where it would just stop playing or erase whole libraries. I must admit, I've not experienced any of that behavior in all the time I've used Tidal on either mobile or desktop apps, but clearly it's an issue for some people, and it shouldn't be for that price. The main worry about Tidal though is the fact that it seems to lean heavily on MQA. Now, if you're not sure what MQA is, it's a proprietary format which is supposedly designed to give you the true studio master experience. Companies do need to pay to license music and devices to be MQA compatible, and as far as the consumer goes, you do need dedicated hardware to play back MQA files to their fullest potential. It's called unfolding. I'm not going to get into that now. If you want to learn more about that, I'll link to Golden Sound's brilliant, although controversial video where he goes over his concerns about MQA. I'll come on to whether that affects sound quality in my opinion in a bit, but that's Tidal. And finally, we've got Kobuz, which a lot of you, particularly stateside, may not have heard of because it's a French company. We've had it in Europe for a while, but it's only rolled out relatively recently, I think in the last couple of years, to the States. Again, 70 million, and it's nice and easy because they're all in FLAC format, either CD quality or high-res quality, up to 24-bit 192 kilohertz. Again, available on all the major platforms, and again, it's quite expensive. So the standard high-res streaming plan is $12.49 a month if you pay a year up front, $14.99 if you pay monthly, the same as Deezer. There's also this Sublime tier at an eye-watering £249 or dollars a year. And what that allows you to do is not only stream the high-res formats, but it also gives you deep discounts if you actually want to buy some to keep. What's good about Kobuz? Well, if you're not so much into modern urban music and you're more into classical music or jazz, then Kobuz has got you covered because the featured artist section does include a lot of releases from classical artists and jazz artists. We've already mentioned you can buy high-res files, although that'll cost you more. And actually, I really like the Kobuz apps across both mobile and desktop devices. It's fairly minimalistic, but quite easy to navigate and use. The other big advantage is you do get these lovely little digital CD booklets which tell you more about the music you're listening to. Now, that's one of the biggest pleasures of buying and owning physical media, and it's replicated poorly, but to an extent, by these digital booklets. You also get this panorama feature which goes in depth on a particular artist. So for example, I lost a whole afternoon delving into Joni Mitchell's catalogue, and like Tidal, if you're an audiophile with software like Runa or Nirvana, Kobuz integrates seamlessly into that. And again, like Tidal, it can access DACs directly, meaning bit-perfect playback and automatic sample rate switching. Things that aren't so good, well, obviously it's expensive, particularly if you go for the Sublime tier, and that's even without factoring the high-res music that you'll be tempted to buy. There's no radio mode, so once you've finished listening to your song or album, the music just stops. There's no infinite play thing because there's no algorithm discovery mechanism. It'll recommend you other similar albums, but it hasn't got like a personalized radio station or recommendation playlist for you specifically. That might be a big downside for some people, but if you integrate it into Rune like I do, then Rune takes care of that, so it's no big deal for me. The app, although being quite good and minimalistic, does tend to load a bit more slowly than its competitors. Again, not a huge problem, but you will notice it. I've accidentally put easy to see bitrate in drab, but it's actually fab because unlike Amazon Music HD or even Apple Music actually, it's very clear what the file quality is that you're listening to. So all those things considered, which one should you go for? Well, being audio nerds, clearly the main determinant for most of us, apart from the price, is going to be which one sounds best. And I've done a whole heap of listening to compare them, and it's actually quite hard to do because it isn't possible just to load up tracks from all the services into one program and switch between them. Different services probably use different masters to generate their streaming version, and as you know, mastering can have a huge impact on the audio quality. And then finally, of course, you have different definitions of high res. So for the comparison, I just stuck to the standard CD quality files, and I played a few albums with which I'm really familiar, such as the English Riviera by Metronomy, which, by the way, is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. If you haven't heard it, you should go and listen to it. But after extensive listening, the service for me anyway that came out in last place, and I was a bit surprised about this, I expect them all to sound really similar, but for me, Amazon Music sounded the worst. Now I'm not sure whether this is due to resampling or whatever, but the tracks just lacked a layer of clarity, of space, of instrument separation, and I found the treble side of the recording to be really quite fatiguing regardless of the headphones I was listening to them on. So if you're listening to some energetic rock music, for example, it can all be a bit too much. So we had a tie for second place. We had Apple Music Lossless, Tidal and Deezer, which to me all sounded fantastic and all about the same. Now, Deezer, of course, only goes up to CD quality, so I did listen to the Tidal Masters and Apple High Res, and yeah, I mean, they sounded great, but I don't know whether it's placebo or not. I'm not sure I could tell the difference in a blind test between those and the CD quality. But yeah, they all sound great. But to me, and I was a little bit surprised, Kobuz sounded better. There was just an extra layer of clarity, of depth, of sound staging. The tonal balance to me sounded a little bit better, and I was just noticing some tiny details in the transients and such like that I wasn't getting with the other services, and this was even at just CD quality. So on sound quality alone, Kobuz wins, but there are other considerations. So for example, if you're a Roon or Audirvana user, then you've really only got two choices, Tidal and Kobuz. Roon's a tiny company compared to the likes of Apple Music and Amazon, so I'm not sure we'll ever see integration of those massive services into Roon. Bit-perfect playback again, if you're using the desktop app, then only Tidal and Kobuz give you that. If you're using an iPad or iPhone, then you can also use Apple Music and Deezer, but remember Amazon Music, I couldn't get to play back bit-perfectly on anything that I used. And finally, in terms of paying back artists per stream, I believe, although I don't know for sure, that Kobuz and Tidal pay a bit more than Apple Music, which pays a bit more than Amazon. Don't know about Deezer. So, based on all that, what are my recommendations? Well, the best kit for the general user, particularly if you've got Apple devices and you want good value, great sounding music, is undoubtedly Apple Lossless, and I'm really excited to see the whole catalogue transition to lossless by the end of the year. I hope they manage to do that. If you're listening particularly on an iDevice such as an iPad or an iPhone using a DAC, you will get bit-perfect, great sounding playback. However, if you are a no-holds-barred audiophile and money's not an object, then I would definitely recommend Kobuz. It just sounds that slight bit better, and its tight integration with Roon and Audirvana means that it's a no-brainer for audiophiles who are heavily invested in those ecosystems. Even the mobile apps are pretty good, and it isn't even the most expensive service out there. I also like the fact that it's transparent about its bit rates and it doesn't use any MQA trickery. You just get good old-fashioned PCM FLAC files. That's it for today, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Stay safe and I'll see you in the next video.